Hello, Canucks fans, and welcome back to their episode of Canucks Conversation, which is brought to you by the great folks over at Greta, a great spot for all games, home and away. We were there for the Canucks Army viewing party on October 19th, and we'll be there throughout the rest of the year as well. So come on down, even if we're not there, make sure you come on down to Greta. It's a great spot to be. You got the arcade, you got the street food menu, and of course, you've got the weekly drink specials. Greta Bar YVR is the place to be. 50 West Cordova Street is the address. Let the games begin. Big Friday episode of Canucks Conversation. We're going to do a bit of a road trip preview here. We're going to talk about some Canucks news and notes that came out of their practice today in Ottawa. And then we're also going to play our regular Family Feud. I kind of like Family Feud on Fridays. I'm not going to lie to you. We're going to keep it to Thursdays, but Family Feud today on today's episode, we're going to get to it. My name is Dave Quadrelli. I'm joined, as always, by Harman Dial, and our technical producer, the man at the controls, is Jacob Lazar. Pretty sunny Friday. And unfortunately, we forgot to tell Harman. We're not doing a hazing thing here or anything like that. We forgot to tell Harman that it was a remote show today. So poor Harman gets to the studio nice and early too. Thankfully, you were able to make it home in time. But my apologies, Harman. You really got to experience the sun by driving in it.
I hope it's just a once per year thing because it happened once last year as well. So let's make sure that it's not multiple times a season thing.
I still owe you for that too. I said I would do a show in the studio and you could be remote. We'll do it one day. I'll get you back for that one. But anyways, Harm, let's get to it. There's a lot to get to actually. So let's start the Godfather, Quinn Hughes. Like we've talked about, Connor Garland's son Quinton is not named after Quentin Hughes, but Quinn Hughes is the godfather of Quentin Garland. That was shared by Sportsnet's Ian McIntyre, friend of the show. Ian McIntyre sharing that from the road. Connor Garland naming Quinn Hughes his son's godfather. That's just super cool. I gotta say, right now, I can't imagine Quinn Hughes like taking care of a child, but I would say, like, if you had to give any Canuck like the ability to take care of your kid, who would it be? You wouldn't say Quinn Hughes. Like, if that was a Family Feud question today, we wouldn't say Quinn Hughes. Put that in for next week, Jacob. There's a good Family Feud question. But I will say this. If you had to give like 30 days notice to any Canuck that they were going to be taking care of a kid, who would you trust to like do the most research and be the most prepared? I'd say Quinn Hughes in a heartbeat. Like, if you change the question a bit, I'd say it's Quinn Hughes. I'd say right now, Quinn Hughes probably isn't capable of doing that, but give him like 30 days to prep. Quinn Hughes can handle it. No problem.
Yeah, he's matured a lot over the years, just covering him since his rookie season. He's a pretty good cook, which is always a good first step. That's there's obviously a lot more to it than that, but as far as like a self-sufficiency standpoint, that's always a nice indicator. And again, just like that positive momentum, he reads a lot, he's into self-improvement. He'd figure it out. Again, not like an instant, if it happened today, he'd be the best at it, but I trust that as he gets older and matures, that he'd be able to figure it out pretty quickly.
Now that I say this, who would you trust?
Myers.
Like, why Myers?
I don't know. He just gives dad energy.
He does.
But he's got like 3 kids himself, I think, right?
I know. And
I don't know. He has a dad energy.
He does have dad energy.
It's just a big smile always on his face. Myers would have been my pick too. Harm.
I'm just saying, how much are like the players' wives carrying them, right? You know what I mean? Because like Quinn Hughes doesn't have a wife, so how much does that come into this equation? I will say, like, I'd probably pick Garland before I pick Myers, or
Really?
Yeah.
I feel like Myers is experienced and he seems responsible. He doesn't seem like the type.
He does seem responsible.
It seemed like the type to just defer all responsibilities.
I guess what I'm trying to say is I think it's hard to grade when the players, they've got their wives helping them, right? It's hard to grade, a guy like Quinn Hughes fairly against a guy who's, married. Anything else you want to say on this topic, Harm?
I feel like a dark horse, and I have no idea about this or whether this is true or not. But I feel like Teddy Bluger, just like his playing style, just responsible, smart, intelligent. I think he spent. I actually want to look this up to double check as well, but yeah, he completed all 4 years of university, so he's got like real world experience as well. I feel like he'd be an underrated pick there.
I'd say Joshua. Joshua's a good sleeper pick as well. I think he could be really good. I think we can move on from this topic.
Yeah.
There's more to get to. There's more to get to. There was more tidbits from IMAC even. This one quickly from IMAC. He reported this today. Brock Boeser taking part in his first full skate with the team. He was, of course, wearing a non-contact jersey, but still a full participant in practice today in Ottawa. He's on the road trip. Like, these are really good signs, Harm. We know he skated before the road trip. Obviously, that was a good sign, but full practice today, like, this is a really good sign in the recovery of Brock Boeser.
Yeah, and even just morale-wise, if he's not, let's say, ready for the first half of the road trip, even just knowing for the team that, okay, we're shorthanded, but help is on the way, that helps morale. That helps to know that, okay, there's some light at the end of the tunnel, and this isn't a case of we're gonna have to go weeks and weeks without a lot of our top players. To know that Demko's return might be around the corner, and Brock seems like he's even closer than that. I think definitely helps the team's morale, and especially at a time when it is going to be difficult to grind out points, and it works in their favor again that their schedule on this road trip is a little bit softer.
Yeah, absolutely. And the schedule of the road trip is going to be something we talk about a lot today. People in the chat are already asking about JT Miller. JT Miller is not on this road trip. Again, folks, indefinite. We don't know when he's going to be back. He's not going to be on this road trip. I think we can at least come to that conclusion. He's not going to be with the team on this road trip. So quickly on Boeser, Harm, we don't know when he's going to be back, but assuming he gets in at some point on this road trip, where is he going to slot into this lineup? Because I look at it and say the way Kiefer Sherwood and Elias Pettersson are playing, you don't break up that duo, and who the hell would have thought we'd be saying that? But if those two start to slip up, and when I say those two, I really mean Sherwood. If Sherwood doesn't really look like the fit on that line, like there's no harm in Kiefer Sherwood going down to the second line or the third line. He's still going to be an impact player on your lineup. I'm just looking at it saying, like, where does Boeser fit in this lineup right now? And again, if there's no JT Miller on this road trip, you think that this is a pretty prime opportunity for Brock Boeser to go play still top line minutes, but play with Elias Pettersson once again, a duo we haven't seen much of in recent years.
Yeah, as long as Sherwood and Pettersson are firing on all cylinders, you keep them together. But at the first sign of, okay, they're struggling a little bit, they look a little bit flat, that's when I think you promote Brock into that opportunity, because if it isn't on that Pettersson line, I don't know that there's a great fit for Boeser as far as putting him in a position to ultimately succeed. Because when you look at the Joshua Suter Garland line, you're not really bumping Garland off that line, and then so you could play him with Blueger and Heinen, but I don't necessarily love the stylistic fit of those three guys. I don't think there's enough speed or dynamic playmaking with that trio. Whereas I think with if Sherwood bumps down, we saw that Heinen, Blueger, Sherwood can really work as a third line that disrupts, that even chips in with a little bit of secondary offense, and it allows Brock and Pettersson to play with each other. We know that they haven't played a lot together over the last couple of seasons, but earlier in their careers, they had some strong chemistry. So the way I would approach it is keep Sherwood and Pettersson together for the time being. And if Boeser's ready to return, then you slot him with Blueger and Heinen, which isn't a great spot for him to succeed. But if Sherwood starts to falter, then it's a pretty quick swap for those guys to alternate positions.
What about the two right-handers on PU's wing? Because Benton Schlowski in the chat said, would you bump down DeBrusk in favor of Boeser with Petey? We've seen DeBrusk play third-line minutes already this season. He's had ups and downs, it feels like. I feel like we haven't seen Jake DeBrusk at his best just yet. If Sherwood and Pettersson are still clicking, like, would you consider that, Harman?
Yeah, I guess it just comes down to how comfortable Brock or Sherwood is playing the left wing. I don't know the exact answer to that, but if one of them is comfortable playing the left wing, I definitely wouldn't be opposed to that possibility either, especially because DeBrusk has been quiet on that line. He hasn't really been driving a lot of play. And yeah, DeBrusk might even be a better fit with Blueger and Heinen than Brock would on that third line. So yeah, so that's something that I'd be open to. Again, assuming that one of Sherwood or Boeser is comfortable playing the left wing instead of the right.
Okay, let's preview this road trip, Harm. Let's take a look at the 6-game road trip the Canucks are starting tomorrow against the Ottawa Senators. Harm, the Ottawa Senators just had their annual "It's over" tweet come out. I saw someone tweet that. I think it was some TSN guy was like, this Senators team is in disarray. They're heading in the wrong direction, whatever. It's an annual thing. The off season, Habs fans, Sens fans, we're back. We're going to be challenging in the Atlantic. And then around this time every year, it's over. We're not going to make the playoffs, all that sort of stuff. I called it yesterday. Vegas Golden Knights beat the Ottawa Senators, nailed it. But the Ottawa Senators are a team in disarray, and that's kind of the theme of every team that the Canucks are going to face on this road trip. The Boston Bruins, again, they get their first win by a narrow margin. Did you happen to watch the Bruins game last night? I was curious, so I watched it. Did you happen to watch it?
I didn't get a chance to catch it, no.
Okay, I've got new takes about Zadorov and Lindholm. They suck. Both of those guys stink. Like, those guys are just not gonna do it. Like, this idea of trading for Zadorov, that's the thing we didn't mention yesterday, was like, Zadorov sucks at hockey right now. And again, we have to take in the larger sample size. This is a guy who was a 4-5 his entire career and comes in, has a really strong playoff run. I love me some Big Z. Talked about it yesterday, how much it'd be great to get Big Z back. On that contract, the way he's playing, like, you don't want that. That's the important context that I think we forgot yesterday, was he stinks. Like, he's not playing well right now.
I mean, you might have forgotten it. I told you right off the bat it was a non-starter. I wasn't even entertaining the conversation.
But Harman, I hadn't watched it for myself. Like, I told you, I watched 2 Bruins games this year. Yesterday was the third one. And the first one I watched was opening night, and he was great that night. Lindholm even got his season off to a really hot start. Those guys stink. Like, again, I hate to use these words of suck and stink. I don't hate to use those words. Obviously, those are fun words to say, but like, they're not playing well right now. And that's kind of the important context. I don't know what's talking about. Oh, go bring back Lindholm. But it was just that, like, I didn't realize how much they were struggling. And I saw all the Bruins fans on Twitter and stuff saying like, oh my gosh, like, these are 2 mistake contracts that have been signed. And man, like, they are playing like poo-poo right now. I don't know how many more words I can use to describe it, but they're not playing well, either of those guys. And I think it was really evident last night. Again, you get the 1-0 victory, but man, like, the Bruins are a team just in absolute shambles right now.
Yeah, they're also, I mean, they got saves last night, but they haven't been getting saves, right? Their top players are also between Swayman, between Pasternak, between McAvoy. They're heavily underperforming. I mean, Pasternak is a player that you expect to be in the 50-goal, 100-point type category, and I think he's well under a point per game right now. Charlie McAvoy, he's been fine defensively, but his point production has been basically non-existent. 7 points in 21 games. This is a guy that is supposed to put up 50 to 55 points in a season, and on top of that, they have weak depth on the wings. They don't have enough scoring there. So I imagine they'll be better than they have as far as their start to this point. They've still got a chance of catching fire and maybe contending for a wild card spot, just because the rest of the Atlantic Division, because of Buffalo, Ottawa, and Detroit fumbling the bag, the Atlantic Division is really weak. So it gives the Bruins a shot to maybe bounce back, but they still struggle a lot to score goals, and because Swayman's been off the mark for most of the season, they're not getting saves, and they're not as defensively stingy as they once were either.
Jeremy Swayman off to a really hot start on that 8-year deal, hey? Like, just, again, I said it immediately that you don't want to sign goaltenders long term. I wasn't saying it because, he's going to suck in year 1, but he sucked in year 1. So anyways, I said the word suck a lot on today's show. I'm going to stop saying that. Okay. Anything else that we needed to get to quickly here? The road trip. Yeah, let's continue previewing the road trip. We've actually hardly done that. How do you want to do this, Harm? Do you want to look at each opponent individually? We kind of started with the Bruins, even though they're game 2. But like, I'll be honest, I haven't watched many Sens games this year. What's gone wrong for them?
I mean, they're also not getting saves, right? Which is really interesting. They've been defensively inconsistent at times as well, which has kind of been the MO for Ottawa for a while. But the biggest issue that I see is Allmark's got an 887 save percentage. And this is a guy that was not only acquired to solve their goaltending issues, but they signed him to an extension where he's going to be making $8.25 million as far as his cap hit starting next year. And he hasn't come close to looking like that caliber of goaltender. And honestly, if they were getting more saves, they'd be closer to contending for a wildcard spot, because they have been a team that, for example, the Senators are red hot on the power play. They have slipped a little bit recently, but still sixth best man advantage in the NHL. And even on the back end, Nick Jensen has been a revelation for them on the right side, which the right side of their defense was an issue for quite a while, but he sort of solidified their top four. But outside of goaltending, I mean, Travis Hamonic, whenever he's been in the lineup, I don't know if he's going to be in the lineup next game, but whenever he's been there, he's been a whipping boy. And I think Ottawa, their top four is okay. Chabot and Jensen have really been a stable pair in a way that Chychrun and Chabot weren't last year. But their third pair, especially when Hamonic's been in the lineup, they're lacking depth on the blue line. And up front as well, Josh Norris just isn't the same player that he once was. I know his point totals aren't too bad, but as far as two-way play driving, because of all the shoulder injuries that he's had, just not getting it done the way that he used to. His underlying numbers are pretty ugly.
I was trying to see if Adam Gaudette was still leading them in scoring. He's not. Now Brady Tkachuk has more goals.
Jake Sanderson's also off to a slow start. That's noteworthy for me too, is talked about Chabot and Jensen playing really well. Jake Sanderson, he sort of last year gave me Miro Heiskanen vibes as far as look how well he skates, look how well he defends. He's got some size. He's just so smooth, so effortless. He's off to an uncharacteristically poor start. And I think he was expected to be their number one defenseman. Sanderson was by far their best blue liner last year. When your number one D-man isn't playing like your number one D-man, that takes a toll, and I think has added to the defensive inconsistency that the Senators are experiencing right now.
We should try to get Travis on the show. I didn't think to make that call. We should have tried to get Travis Green on the show. Not sure how that would have went, but that would have been a fun interview to have. Maybe next time. Maybe next time the Canucks play the Senators, we'll get Travis on the show. Okay, moving down the list, we've already talked about the Bruins, Harm. Again, I said it at the top when we started previewing this road trip, is this is a road trip that the Canucks should be able to at least have over 500, have at least a 500 or better record. I think anything less than that, even with the injuries that they have, the players that they're missing, even with that, the teams that they're going up against, they should be able to keep that record above 500 on this road trip. And that kind of brings me to my next point, that they're playing the Pittsburgh Penguins, who, again, they've been a problem all season long for they've had problems. I shouldn't say they've been a problem. They haven't been a problem for anybody except themselves. They've had problems all season long, Harm. And again, the Penguins are just a team that right now just hasn't had it. Again, you look at the Buffalo Sabres, the next team the Canucks are going to face on this trip. That's another team that has all sorts of question marks around it. No question marks are bigger than the ones in Detroit, I'd say, right now. When it comes to teams that have question marks around them on this road trip, the Detroit Red Wings are just a mess. The Yzer plan is what was Stevie Y cooking? It just hasn't worked out at all. Again, we talked about it yesterday, this idea of rebuilds and how teams are going to go about it. And I think we're going to see a shift. And I think the Detroit Red Wings are a good example of why teams are going to shift away from the traditional blow it up rebuild. I think we're going to see some shifts in thinking in NHL front offices. But those teams, the Penguins, Sabres, Red Wings, those are the not final three games, because then they play Minnesota, which is the only good opponent on this trip. We'll talk about that in a second. But those three teams, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Pittsburgh, I don't want to spend too much time talking about them. I think everybody sort of recognizes that at this point, they are one of the worst teams in the league. The back end has taken a step back with Carlson and Letang really struggling. They give up way too much off the rush. Their forwards are too slow. They don't have really any secondary offense outside of Crosby, Malkin, Raquel, and Rust. They've traded away Lars Eller already. Bottom six is a bit of a mess. They also don't get saves. Haven't had consistent goaltending. Tristan Jarry has been a massive disappointment for them this year. They are just so vulnerable defensively. They give up way too much. I don't even know if Mike Sullivan still has that same level of pull in that locker room. It's been and that's not necessarily on like me pointing the finger at Sullivan, because this is just a badly constructed roster. But when a head coach has been there for a really, really long time, and it's been a while since they've had success, sometimes a coach's voice just gets a bit stale. And I wonder if that's the point where Sullivan is at as well. They've been blowing leads. They're a train wreck right now. It's been a nightmare season for them. Outside of them, Buffalo, the big question mark that I'm going to be curious to see with them is whether Tage Thompson is going to come back in time for that game, because Thompson was having an unreal bounce back year. He was leading the league in 5-on-5 goals at one point. And not just that, but Thompson was a player that when he initially had his 94-point breakout, he had defensive flaws. Like the Sabres gave up a lot of chances, a lot of goals against. The key with his hot start this year before he got injured was Thompson's defensive metrics were elite. Like the Sabres, it's not just that they were producing a ton with him on the ice, they weren't giving up anything defensively. And so he was one of the best centers to start this season. His absence is a massive, massive blow. And just looking up their lines right now, they've got Ryan McLeod centering that top line in his place right now. Dylan Cousins and Jack Quinn, who I expected to have, like in Quinn's case, a breakout year, in Cousins' case, a bounce back year. Those guys have been so disappointing. I see that they currently have Sam Lafferty on the second line instead of Quinn in the top six roles. So I think that says everything you need to know about the lack of scoring punch at the top of their lineup right now. And then finally with Detroit, they just have no secondary offense, right? Outside of DeBrincat, Raymond and Larkin, like Kane, Tarasenko, Comfort, these guys just aren't producing enough. So three teams that are all in massive states of disarray. One point I will bring up as far as the road trip as a whole, Canucks are going to have to be ready for these weird start times, because Friday is a noon Pacific start time. And then Sunday against the Red Wings is a 9:30 a.m. Pacific. And if you go back to last season, those early start times have thrown the Canucks off rhythm.
Do we have any update on Kirill Kaprizov? Because as we kind of transition the Wild game, like he got hurt last night. He went knee on knee. I can't remember who it was with. I was watching the game. I just can't remember who it was with. Kirill Kaprizov, I don't see any update today.
I think he was okay. I'm pulling up Mike Russo's article over at The Athletic.
Here we go.
Yeah. It
says, he avoided major injury. So that's good. That's good. Again, a guy who's in the conversation for the Hart Trophy. If he's avoided major injury, you assume that he'll be good by December 3rd. I think that's fair to say. So for our purposes.
Well, also, it says that it says that he returned for a final shift in the second period, and that after the game, he said he was a little sore, but okay.
Excellent. That's good. Like, you never want to see a player get hurt, but again, you really don't want to see the players that are, about to win their first Hart Trophy potentially. You definitely don't want to see those players get hurt. So good news that Kirill Kaprizov avoids injury. Alex Ovechkin out 4 to 6 weeks, and that is sad. I was going to wait for anyone else to bring that up, but that makes me very, very sad. Right after I gave him the quads bump, he also goes knee on knee and gets hurt, and that was really, really unfortunate to see for Alex Ovechkin. But the Wild, the Wild are undoubtedly the best team on this road trip that the Canucks are going to face. It's a good chance for them to finish on a high note. We will see what the rest of that road trip, or the start of that road trip, I guess, has in store for them. But the Wild, undoubtedly the best team. Again, a common theme that we've been saying is like teams aren't getting the goaltending. The Wild are getting the goaltending this year, and they've been having the scoring as well. They've got Kaprizov putting up really, really solid numbers to start the new year.
Yeah, Boldy's breaking out, and not just that their goaltending has bounced back, but I think their blue line has been a lot better with the return of Jared Spurgeon. The Wild, honestly, before the season started, I didn't expect them to be this good, but I expected them to be back in the wild card playoff conversation. They've been a team that always makes the playoffs. And look, let me be clear. I'm not at the point where I expect them to really be a real playoff threat. As far as potentially, like, forget even a deep run. I don't even know if they're going to win a single playoff round this year. But with Spurgeon coming back, he missed all of last year with injury. It's also stabilized Jake Middleton, who like that's almost like not just Spurgeon back, but Middleton returning form. It's as if you've got two new top four defensemen on top of Faber and Brodin continuing to do what they do. And I think Faber and Middleton have actually been spending more time together, paired together. So their blue line has really been stabilized compared to last year. But also another reason is their PK was horrifically bad last year. 31st, I want to say, in the NHL. I still don't think they've completely solved those issues, but it's at least not a complete tire fire, which when you look at part of the reason why the Canucks were able to break out last year under Rick Tocchet, it's because their PK went from this is an absolute tire fire to, okay, it's at least respectable. That alone may make such a huge improvement. And I think Minnesota with their special teams last year was a disaster. This year, they've been in a much better situation.
Okay, let's get to our poll question. I want to talk about our poll question today. It is brought to you by the Canucks Army Survey. We know you've got thoughts, takes, and opinions, and now's your chance to share them. Hit the link that's in our description, fill out our quick survey. Speaking of surveys, Family Feud coming up pretty soon. Not only will you help us build the content you actually want to see, but you're also throwing your hat in the ring to win a $250 Fanatics gift card. And guess what? We've got multiple to give away. It's a quick minute of your time that could score you some serious gear cash. Don't wait. This chance ends on November 29th, so get after it. You can also find it just by going to CanucksArmy.com. It'll be the first thing that pops up. But let's get to our poll question today. How many of the six games on this road trip will the Canucks win? 1 to 2, 3, 4, or 5 to 6. Harm leading the way, 37.7% of the vote. People saying 3. The Canucks will win 3 games, half of the games. Then 34.7% say 4. They will win 4 games. 16.2% of people say they will win 1 to 2 games, and 11.4% say 5 to 6. I'm going with 4. I'm looking at this schedule. They play the way they did against the Rangers, a really hard-working effort from the Canucks. They bring that in, like I said, if they bring that in half the games, they're going to win those games, and then they'll get a win stolen for them when Thatcher Demko returns. You heard it here first. 4. I'm going with 4.
Yeah, I don't have an exact prediction, but I'd expect 3 or 4. That's a reasonable expectation given that the schedule is soft, but also accounting for, okay, they've got some weird start times and they are still shorthanded.
Yeah, absolutely. I think even with that context, 1 to 2 is probably a failure, but 3, like, you're fine with 3, especially like we said, with no JT Miller, no Brock Boeser, no Thatcher Demko yet. I'm going 4 though. I'm going 4. Speaking of surveys, let's go. Family Feud, take it away. Host of Family Feud, Jacob Boeser.
Jacob Boeser, and it's time to play Canucks Conversation, Family Feud. I thought Quad said last week that this week he was going to go first after his all-time fumble, but I guess not. It looks like it's still Harman in the leadoff spot. Harm, you've had some great performances recently, and I'm not expecting anything less. I did notice someone left a note when they filled out the survey this week saying that the guys might need more time for this one. I don't think so. I'm confident you guys will be able to power through this. Harm, you ready?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. I'll remind you again of the rules. You'll have 25 seconds on the clock. Your timer will begin when I finish reading the first question. If you can't think of an answer, just say pass, and we will try and come back to it at the end. All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being least, 10 being the most, how concerned are you with the Canucks play on home ice this season?
7.
Which current Canuck is most underappreciated by the fan base?
Connor Garland.
Name a Canuck past or present who was born in Finland.
Ken Lankinen.
Which NHL coach will be the next to get fired?
Mike Sullivan.
How many points will Quinn Hughes finish his career with?
1,050.
Good work. All right. You can get Quad's attention. I'll tally up your score.
How'd that go?
It was all right. I mean, no major fumbles, but it's not overly easy either.
So you left the door open. Didn't I say I was going to go first this week?
Yeah, so I did
Jacob
mention
that.
Oh,
but, you just muted yourself and went off into the background. So Harman hit lead off for you. I'm tallying up his score here. I'm thinking it's pretty good just based off of the answers he gave me. Got a lot of number 2s and number 3s, and he got number 1 mixed in there as well.
Don't tell me the total, actually.
You don't want to know the total, really?
You don't want the pressure?
No, tell me the total. Tell me the total. Tell me the total.
All right. Harman got you 95 points.
That sucks. Okay, so I got to get more points.
Yeah.
Nice going, Harm.
He got you right up near the halfway point. All right, Quads. Elephant in the room. The worst performance of the year was last week. Got to bounce back. I'll remind you again of the rules. You will have 30 seconds on the clock. Your timer will begin when I finish reading the first question. If you can't think of an answer, say pass. We'll come back to it at the end. If you give one of Harman's answers, you will hear the buzzer, and I will ask you to give me something.
I'm just sweating right now. Just get it going. Let's go.
All right. On a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the least and 10 being the most, how concerned are you with the Canucks' play on home ice this season?
9.
Which current Canuck is most underappreciated by the fan base?
Nils Höglander.
Name a Canuck past or present who was born in Finland.
Aatu Ratu.
Which NHL coach will be the next to get fired?
Oh, shoot. Pass.
How many points will Quinn Hughes finish his career with?
1,000. 1,001.
No.
What the hell?
Well...
Okay, I get to keep going.
Yes, keep going. Keep going. We've got a range here, so you just give me something that's not right around 1,000.
Okay, 900.
Okay, and then I'll let you go back. Give me one answer here. Next NHL coach to get fired. You got 5 seconds.
Mike Sullivan.
Okay. That's what I said. That's who Harman gave. So one more. Someone did mention, I told Harman this, someone mentioned in the comments when they filled out the survey, the guys might need a bit of extra time for this. So okay. I'm being very generous. One more answer for next coach to get fired.
Chris Knobloch.
Okay. I don't think you guys won, but I'm going to tell you your scores here.
Look, I had to get 105. I'm happy with that performance. Is it close?
No, because almost all of your answers are resulting me to actually search through to find out how many points there were, which means they weren't in the top 5 answers. So,
oh no. Karn's calling me Fumbelina. I don't like that. Ban Karn from the chat.
I will not be banning Karn from the chat. No.
Oh man.
I'm curious what people said for underappreciated. Because
what did I get wrong?
My actual answer in my mind would have been like a Pius Suter, but I feel like he's so underappreciated that like people aren't gonna think of him as underappreciated, like the same way that Joshua was unsung hero. But then now that I'm thinking about it more, I'm like, these are Canucks Convo listeners. They're smarter than like the casual fan, you know?
Okay. All right, Quads. You want to know how many points you got?
Tell me. Is it better than 10?
Yeah, you got 38 points this week.
Okay. I'm fine with that.
So we'll go through this. Scale of 1 to 10. How concerned are you with the Canucks play on home ice? Harman answered 7. Quads, you answered 9. You guys like bookended the number 1 answer. It was 8. 26 points was 8 for that response. Only 2 people said 10. So there's clearly not, some people that aren't all worried yet about the Canucks on home ice. But certainly with number 8, or certainly with 8 being the number 1 answer, that there is concern. Most underappreciated, Harman, you mentioned him here afterwards. Pius Suter was the number 1 answer. Number 2 answer was Elias Pettersson. And the number 3 answer, just 1 point behind him, was Teddy Bluger.
Right. So these were actually, I galaxy brained it.
Yeah, a little bit. But, you still got points there. Garland was the number 4 answer, Harman. Canuck past or present, born in Finland. Kevin Lankinen was the number 2 answer. Aatu Ratu was tied for 6th with 5 points. Tied with, of all people, Olli Juolevi. The number 1 answer was Sami Salo. 37 points for Sami Salo. Jarkko Ruutu, Jyrki Lumme up there as well.
How many did Aatu Ratu get?
He got 5 points.
Höglander was the bad one for underappreciated.
Underappreciated.
Also 5 points. Which NHL coach would be the next to get fired? Now, funny enough, this question was actually set up before Boston fired Montgomery. there was only 2 responses for Montgomery. So I was able to keep the question. Number 1 was Andrew Brunette with 24 points there. Mike Sullivan, number 2. Derek Lalonde, number 3. And then just a spattering of other coaches in there. A couple for St. Louis, a couple for Greg Cronin, Luke Richardson. Knobloch got you 4 points. And 1 response for our old friend Travis Green in Ottawa.
Brutal.
Finally, how many points will Quinn Hughes finish his career with? Now, this one, the reason that it got confusing there, Quads, was because I did ranges of 100 points just to make it easy for people. Otherwise, it would have taken me forever to sort. So Harman got the number 1 answer in Quads. This was the one you guessed to, of 1,000 to 1,099. That was 32 points there, number 1 answer. Quads, your 900 points was the number 3 answer, so 900 to 999. The number 2 answer was 1,200 plus, which I did put a note in there, would put Quinn Hughes in the top 5 all time in defenseman scoring if he reached 1,200 points.
Oh, man. All right. Good stuff. All right. We need a layup survey next week. And I know you've already made the survey. Is this next survey coming up? Is this one going to be hard too?
It shouldn't be. There's already one response in there. The next week should not be difficult. Okay. There's going to be a couple like layups in there.
Okay.
Are we 5-5 now, or are we 500?
I gotta be honest. I gotta call out the listeners a little bit. I think people are like trying to stump us. That's not the point of the game.
No.
I think people are trying
those responses. Those responses are totally fair.
No.
If anything, like I galaxy brained it when it was like I'm still mad about the. Like my actual thought was, yes, Pia Suter is the most underappreciated, but I was like galaxy braining it, thinking what fans might think.
Yeah,
so it's on us, man.
You're much better at taking criticism than I am.
If you had hit Sammy Sallow, Andrew Brunette, and Pia Suter, you guys would have won. Right? You just need those number 1 answers, and I don't think any of those number 1 answers were too far out of the realm of possibility.
Some comments pouring into the chat here. Sniper said, we said there was layups last week and look what happened. Karn, Fumbelino with the excuses, and Rajcraft, Quads, it wasn't my fault. And then BJ McLennan in the chat said, that's almost 4 times better than last week. Good work, Quads. Only up from here. All right. Play the music, pull up your graphic, whatever you need to do, Jacob.
No graphic today.
No problem.
I'll spare you guys the 500. Well, I'll put it this way: the next time you'll see a graphic is when you guys are above 500 again, and we're hoping.
Are we 5-5 now?
You are 5-5. Yeah.
Nick Pochek in the chat. Ironically, answering the questions normally trips Quads up worse than trying to throw it. Anyways, fill out the survey. New survey is available. 2 surveys for you to fill in our description, both on YouTube and the podcast. Let's get to anyone else, which is brought to you by our friends over at White Spot. At White Spot, they're all about enjoying great, comforting food and spending quality time with loved ones. With a new comfort menu, White Spot is focusing on cozy, satisfying flavors that are perfect to enjoy with family. Available now and developed by the White Spot culinary team, the comfort menu is filled with warm, indulgent dishes designed to make you feel right at home. The new menu features mouth-watering new additions like mini Yorkies, the braised beef burger, the home-style pot roast, and backed by popular demand, the iconic chicken pot pie. Bring your family to White Spot for a delicious meal, perfect for the season. Visit your local White Spot today. I've gotten anyone else for you, Harm. Have you seen what's been going on with Connor Bedard? We got to look at it in Chicago, or when Chicago was here, and obviously he doesn't get any shots on goal, gives up the dagger, basically, the empty net goal for JT Miller. I was due to Connor Bedard losing the puck and hasn't been scoring a lot. And this quote, pull it up, Jacob. This is from Ben Pope over in Chicago. Connor Bedard looked the most discouraged I've ever seen him after practice today. He said, I could name 100 things I could do better. I don't know, man. It's been frustrating for sure. I just don't feel like I'm really doing anything. Keep chipping away at it, I guess, and hopefully I find my game soon. For context, he's now gone 11 straight games without a goal, and the Panthers outshot the Hawks 10-0 during his ice time last night. Now, Paul Bissonnette brought this up on the Hockey Night in Canada broadcast the night that the Canucks played the Hawks, and he brought up the idea of moving him to the wing. The Blackhawks can't do that. Like, the Blackhawks can't move him to the wing to help him get his confidence up. Like, get him out of Chicago. This is brutal. This is tough to watch. Like, this is so tough to watch right now.
Stop with the hot takes and the overreaction and the like.
How is this an overreaction? He should not be playing center.
He's a 19-year-old sophomore.
So what kind of environment is that for him to get his NHL career started?
He's still got more points than Elias Pettersson this season.
So?
15 points in 20 games. Yeah. Oh, wow. That's your, as a 19-year-old sophomore, the sky is falling. Yeah, he's struggling right now. He's playing poorly. It happens. Like he's a 19-year-old sophomore on a bad team with barely any help.
Dude,
this is not
that quote is a cry for help. How can you read that quote, see what he's saying, see what he's going through right now, and not want to swoop in and take him back?
There's no reason to hit the panic button. He'll be fine. He'll be totally fine.
Well, no. I'm not panicking about Connor Bedard, the player. I'm just saying this is so crappy for him to go through, and the fact Chicago can't play him at the wing because they have who's Chicago's second center? Don't look it up. Who's their second center? I can't name.
Probably Dickinson. Actually, awesome. No. Dickinson was playing on Bedard's wing for a while. I don't know who they started with Kurashev as their 2C. I don't even know who they.
So I did just right now. I did just look it up. If you guys are curious.
Tell me.
But their second line is Tyler Bertuzzi, Ilya Mikheyev, and then being centered by Nick Foligno.
That just made me throw up in my mouth hearing that. Like I just puked a little.
And then Ryan Donato centering their third line.
Yeah, that's horrible. Like that's a horrible environment for him to be in. Awful. They didn't do nearly enough to insulate that kid, and it's a shame. It's a shame. He'll be fine long term. I'm not saying the generational talent is at risk of having a career ruined because he's in Chicago, but I am saying like his shots at having a great season are being ruined because like here's the other thing, Harm. Like he's not a rookie. Like he's not a rookie, and everybody's talking about like, oh, he's like at some point you want to start winning. And again, the Canucks fumbled Elias Pettersson's ELC. The Canucks teams were better than what Connor Bedard's playing with. Like think about those teams and how awful they were and how we were talking about how garbage they were. Like this is his second year in the NHL. Why is this just okay that everybody's like, oh, whatever? Like he's a young kid. Like he is that team. He's all that team has right now. That's embarrassing.
Yeah, I sort of agree, but at the same time, he's 19, man. He just turned 19. And like this isn't like how many times do you see team drafts a player number 1 overall, and by that guy's age 19 season, they're playoff competitive? Like
I'm not saying playoff competitive. I'm saying you're not like an absolute bottom feeder, and the kid is getting his lunch fed to him every time he steps on the ice. Like, why couldn't Chicago sign Tyler Toffoli? Let's just start there. Like, why couldn't they actually insulate him a little bit?
Well, because they signed Teravainen.
They still have the cap space. They could still make those moves. They still have the cap space.
I mean, but the players have to want to come too, right? There's no guarantee that. Like you can argue that they didn't target the right guys and criticize them for that. That's fair.
That is what I'm criticizing them for. I'm criticizing them for not putting out a competitive enough team for this kid to be on. It's embarrassing. It's not good for the game.
Fair, but also they made a lot of moves in the summer, and on paper they should have been better. And I almost wonder if more of this is on Luke Richardson for not getting enough out of this roster. Like even just seeing the way that he's been handling Taylor Hall, it's not a good look for Luke Richardson, in my opinion.
Yep, absolutely. I agree with you. There's another guy that should be in a Family Feud survey for coaches that are going to be fired. It's just tough to watch. And again, people are talking about me laying out the framework for bringing Bedard to Vancouver. As honestly, like as much as I like to joke, that's not what I'm doing. I just say like it is tough to watch. Like it's not fun to watch Connor Bedard struggle like this. Him being that sad after a practice. Like that just sucks. That sucks to watch. And I wish Connor Bedard all the best. And I'm not writing any Dear Connor letters the way I am for Sidney Crosby, but it just sucks. Like that word again. I bring up that word again, but like this is a horrible environment for him to be in. It's awful.
Yeah, you are right that he needs more help, and it also hasn't helped. He'll start getting more help once some of their prospects and young players start developing and hitting and actually arriving too, because as far as young players, it's basically been Bedard, it's been Alex Vlasic, who was drafted well before him years wise, and other than that, like Reichel's sort of bounced around, but other than that, other young players are ready yet, like the Kevin Korchinskis and the Frank Nazars and the Oliver Moores and Levshinov, like all these other guys that they have in the system, like that's going to be an important push for them too. It's still too early for that.
Okay. Anything else that you wanted to say or get in yourself? I have something on Sasson. You want to talk about that?
Sure. Let's do it.
Okay, Max Sasson, or Sasson, it's Sasson, right? Yeah, Sasson talked today, and he said his father was in tears when he called to tell him the news that he'd been called up by the Canucks, started screaming, started crying. It was a special phone call, was the quote from Sasson. He then went on to say he has a bunch of family coming into Ottawa to see his NHL debut. So it looks like Max Sasson's getting in the lineup tomorrow against the Senators. That would be a John Tortorella move. If the whole family flew in, he bought tickets for everybody. No, you're a healthy scratch. It looks like Sasson is going to play in his NHL debut tomorrow against the Senators. So congrats to Max Sasson. Love to see a story like that. It's going to be nice to see him get his NHL debut. Love stories like that.
Yeah, I am intrigued to see how his skill set fits, right? He doesn't have a high ceiling, right? I'd be shocked if he ever becomes anything more than a fourth line player, but I do see between his speed, his defensive work ethic, and how direct of a game that he plays that he could develop into whether it's a 12th forward, 13th forward, somebody that can perhaps crack it in the NHL, and not just be a guy that gets one short cup of coffee and you never hear from him again. He has the tools. Unfortunately, it was a quiet training camp and preseason for him. I expected a stronger push from him in camp and preseason, but now that he's got the shot in real games, I mean, it doesn't. By the time late November rolls around, it doesn't matter what you did in camp and preseason, whether it's good or bad. It's what can you do in an actual NHL game environment when the stakes are highest, and this is a great shot for him to see if he can be a spark plug. And add some energy and jam.
And shout out to Terry Wallace in the Facebook chat, because he pointed out, he said, have you guys talked about Max Sasson yet? Sorry, just tuned in. No, we hadn't yet. We talked about him yesterday, but again, this new context of NHL debut, his dad screaming and crying about it. That's awesome. Love to see stories like that. Okay. Yeah, this was pointed out today. I wanted to get to this. I don't know if you saw this on Canucks Army, Harm. Corey at V Canucks News, you know him, V Canucks News Summary on Twitter. Corey McKay on Canucks Army, he did the legwork, did the research that the Canucks have recalled the most players before the 20-game mark in 20 years. He went back and looked up all of the times they've recalled players since the 2005 season. Go read that article. I just wanted to quickly give that a plug and a shout out. CanucksArmy.com. That story by Corey. I gotta figure out Isaiah's last name, but I'm sure he'll tell me. But anyways, the V Canucks News Summary account on Twitter, like I said, we brought him on at Canucks Army. He's done some absolutely exceptional work. But this one from Jeremy Lee, are all these frequent call-ups concerning for the Canucks playoff chances?
No, I think it's more just cycling guys up, seeing who might stick, giving them a taste of what the NHL is like, and sort of realizing that cup of coffee is part of their development journey. It's not that, players up and this is supposed to be the final destination. They're supposed to make it and never go back down and never look back from this point. But that it's a milestone. It's the middle of the journey. It's not the end of the destination. And so I don't think it's a concern really at all.
I'm trying to find an answer to this because someone earlier in the chat asked why we're called Canucks Army, but all the other sites at the Nation Network are called Nation. I don't know. I'm going to ask right now. I'm going to shoot a text. Jacob, Harman, Stahl.
Okay, Jacob, I got a question for you. You obviously follow Habs quite a bit. What's the temperature around Marty St. Louis? Is he actually on the hot seat? And just in general, like Montreal intrigues me as one of those teams where there's always so much hype around them in the preseason, but they never actually break out and like haven't really taken that step this year. What are the overall vibes around the Canadiens right now and around Marty St. Louis?
So it's interesting because I think when you look at Kent Hughes, like he's got absolutely no panic. This team is still being built the way that he wants it to. Now, the frustrating part for Habs fans is you've got Nick Suzuki and Cole Caulfield playing like superstars right now and just no one else on the roster to support that. So fans want the team to be competitive because they look at these two-star players, kind of similar to what the Canucks went through for a few years, right? When you had Quinn Hughes and Elias Pettersson and Brock Boeser, and you wanted the team to be competitive at the beginning of their window with these young players. But the thing with St. Louis is like it made no sense when they hired him. His only coaching experience was his kids' peewee team. And then all of a sudden he's coaching an NHL team. In a way, his successes early on kind of hurt him. Like, he should have been like a 1.5 year and done kind of guy, just to like be a man behind the bench for them, like just another dude, right? And the fact that players liked him and he had probably better than expected stretches made him stick around a little longer. I don't think he's the right guy to coach them going forward, but I think for a rebuilding team with a lot of young talent, and he's clearly gotten the most out of Cole Caulfield. So I don't know. I don't know if he survives the year, but also it wouldn't surprise me because Kent Hughes doesn't seem to be ready to push things quicker than they've already been going.
Okay, you guys want the answer? It's
a
very funny answer. So I texted who needed to be texted. The domain was unavailable. CanucksNation.com was just taken, so they were like, we'll call it Canucks Army. So that's literally the reason. That's it. That's the reason I thought it was like, we want to change the branding, blah, blah, blah. No, CanucksNation.com was unavailable. I just went to CanucksNation.com, and it just says, this page is under construction, and then it gives you relevant searches to like Vancouver Canucks tickets, the team schedule, and the Canucks website. But it's just very funny. It's like someone has that domain, but they're just like, we're working on it, and they haven't done anything with it. Canucks Army was founded in 2009, so yeah, it's been a while now. It's been over a decade that someone has just kept that domain for themselves. I don't think we'll ever switch. I like the name Canucks Army more than Canucks Nation. I think Canucks Army, and I mean all the history that's at Canucks Army now. Obviously, like, we're obviously not going to change it at this point. But that's a very funny answer. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that's unexpected for me as well. And I agree, Canucks Army. Maybe it's because there's just so much history behind it.
Yeah.
It's better than Canucks Nation.
Absolutely. Better than Canucks Nation. No doubt. Okay, anything else that you wanted to get to, Harm, before we close out today's show?
Nope, I'm good.
All right. I apologize. There was some stuff in the chat that I wanted to get to, but we've got to head out, and we're gonna have lots of time to talk about all this stuff. But I hope everybody has a great weekend. We'll be back on Monday to break down the Canucks game against the Ottawa Senators. Make sure you tune in to Rink Wide Vancouver on Saturday night. But we will close it out there. For my co-host Harman Dial and our technical producer Jacob Lazar, my name is David Corgelli. Thanks so much for listening to the episode of Canucks Conversation. Canucks Conversation is live Monday through Friday, every weekday at 2 p.m. over on the Canucks Army YouTube channel. Make sure you like, subscribe, and interact in the YouTube live chat every day with us, folks.